young man born on one planet grows up on another planet, and as he grows up, learns he has mystical powers. On the one hand, that's Star Wars. On the other hand, that's Superman, right? Plot, setting, where does your story take place? I chose Seattle for my Green Arrow stories because, number one, I wanted to take the character out of the mythical world of Star City and put him in the real world. And I'd only ever lived in three cities in my life. Chicago, where I went to art school, New York, where I broke into the business, but I had already used that as a setting for Sable, and Seattle, where I was living at the time. And you can't write a story about the slums of Rodeo Drive. You know, even though it may be a horrible place, I don't know, I've never been there, will never be there. But you have to know your setting, because if you're doing a city, the city becomes as much a character as anything else. The atmosphere of the city sets the atmosphere of what your story will feel like. In Green Arrow, it rains a lot, so on went the hood. Characterization. Who are these people? If you're writing prose, or, well, in fact, anytime you're creating a character, you should know everything about their background, from where they were born, where they went to school, what kind of education they had, were they in the military, what kind of jobs did they have. You don't have to put that in your book, but knowing that as you're starting to write helps you flesh out that character, so that when you plug your character into a certain given situation, you automatically know how he would react because of his or her background. And that follows on through. Motivation. Why does this person do what they do? Batman, it's, let's see, well, revenge for the murder of his parents, but he's also psychotic, in no small way. Superman, the greater good of mankind. Why do they do what they do? Spider-Man was always kind of fun because he started off doing it for the money, and then he was supplementing his income with photography for J. Jonah Jameson. But you have to have a reason why people do what they do. Conflict. What's the big problem here? Is the conflict that Ernst Stavro Blofeld has stolen 2 nuclear bombs and wants to blow up some place in order to hold the rest of the world hostage for, get this, $100 million. Back then, it's a lot of money, right? I mean, back then, $1 million was probably worth $1 million instead of the 97 cents that it's worth today. And so you have to have the conflict. And in that conflict, keep in mind that your characterization on your villain needs to be as well thought out as your hero. The nature of the hero is that changes. The nature of the protagonist is defined by the nature of the antagonist. If Superman gets drunk one night and kicks the crap out of some junkie down the street, that's not a hero. That's just some guy beating up on somebody because he can, right? One of my friends once did a cartoon where he showed Superman coming after some robbers, and they start shoot at him first, use up all their bullets, throw their guns at him, they bounce off his face, and Superman says, you know, I'm sick and tired of you guys throwing guns at my face. It just makes me so mad, and he punches this guy, and there's this red splash across the page, and this little teeny tiny sound effect that says, blip. And he turns to the other guy and says, if you ever tell anyone I did this, I'm gonna come back here and do the same thing to you. And the last caption says, actually, Superman gets pissed off and does this about 5 times a day, and no one ever tells. So, if your hero is someone who stands up against someone, stands up against a bully, as long as your hero is not a bully, right? If it gives him something to do that makes him heroic. Give him a challenge, give him an intellectual challenge. Like the characters in the Da Vinci Code. That's another case where the characterization is so much of everything, but know your character's background. And if your character, as you come along with your story, doesn't have all the expertise that you need in order to tell that story, team them up with somebody who does, so they can have a conversation back and forth. The Tom Hanks character always has someone that he can talk to about what's going on, and they supply the little extra knowledge that, as a team, they have more to offer, and it saves pontificating, and in film it's exposition dialogue, right? There's nothing worse than exposition dialogue. It's where one of the characters all of a sudden steps into the camera, maybe somebody you've never seen before, like somebody I know, and just rambles on with dialogue for page after page after page, which is essential to the storyline, but it's also lazy writing on the part of the writer, because you should be able to bring that into conversation and reveal it little by little instead of having all the exposition. The reason I mentioned that, I got a phone call from a friend who's a small-time director. He said, how'd you like to be in a movie? I said, yeah, sure. He said, I'm even give you some dialogue. I thought, I'd like Stan Lee, man. You know, walk on, do a funny line, and walk off. No, I get the script. I've got 7 pages of exposition dialogue. Oh yeah. Riffraff. Riff Tracks. Riff Tracks got a hold of that thing. It's called Saber Rain. No, Star Raiders, The Adventures of Saber Rain. And it was hysterical. You want to watch the Riff Tracks. Don't watch the movie itself. It's like, no. But you'll see why. It aspires to a B movie. It aspires to a 1950s B movie, which yeah, it's really bad, but it was so much fun. So then after you have the conflict, you have to have the change, something that comes about. Your character has been doing a certain thing throughout the story, and all that happens is that he gets in more and more trouble. And so he's got to change something on his approach, and he tries that. The good storytelling, story structure is that the thing that he tries to do that he thinks is going to help things makes it even worse. And the more he pursues it, the worse and worse and worse it gets, to the point where what's worse than death?
Betrayal.
How about damnation?
That too.
Right? Up the stakes. What's at stake here? You raise the odds, you increase the conflict, and you raise the stakes for your protagonist and for everybody else around, so that your reader is now at the stage where holy crap, everything this person has done has been wrong. And now he's gonna do something radical, what's gonna happen next? And resolution needs to be something that brings about the end of the story in a way that's satisfying to the reader, but in a way that they never saw it coming. I've got a buddy in Australia who did a really great film, and it won all kinds of awards on the international film festival circuit. And it's a story that it starts out with a young girl who is, you're led to believe that she's been drugged and raped. And she's working with a psychiatrist who's bringing her out to like hypnotic regression so that she can understand what it was that happened to her that brought about such a terrible change in her life. And the zinger, man, I won't spoil it for you, but when I watched it, my jaw dropped because I can usually get ahead of the plot. I never saw it coming. I absolutely never saw it coming. I thought, that's brilliant. I'm going to steal it. I haven't been able to find a way to do it yet. I'm sure you'll forgive me because when I do get around to stealing it, I'm going to give him credit for it and pray he doesn't sue me or track me down and beat the crap out of him. So that it's a growth process. You start off, you have to introduce your characters right off the bat, and it's always a good idea to get your villain in there early on, so that when the audience looks back, they go, oh, wait a minute, that's what that was about. Foreshadowing, right? You want to plant clues along the way. I mentioned Mickey Spillane before, and